at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Welcome. We are back for round 2. That's right. 2 in one day. That's right. Strong tea today. The pot is really brewing over here. Now we have an incredible guest joining us. Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro is joining us, and she will be sharing her story on trauma and all of her incredible books. And so just grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab your beverage, and just join us in. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment box, and I will bring them up. But before we get started, we will do just a little disclaimer. So for anyone out there, and then I will bring in my incredible guest. So, disclaimer for Miss Liz Tea Times live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to use your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any tea time hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith, however, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All tea time guests and audience participation are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk, and it is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I, Miss Liz, welcomes you. Should you decide that this show at this time is not made for you, I respect that, and I will see you at a future show at a later date. Now, there we go. We got the disclaimer all out of the way. Now, let's get some little info on the incredible guest that will be joining me today. Dr. Marni Hill Foderaro is an award-winning and celebrity author, speaker, and educator. She earned her doctorate in education from Northern Illinois University and completed postdoctorate studies at Harvard after a very successful and rewarding 35 years career as a high school special education teacher with 12 years as a university adjunct graduate school professor. Dr. Marni's life was forever changed after experiencing numerous trauma-induced STE-Spiritual transformation encounters. Dr. Marni's 2020 Best Books award-winning spiritual frictions, God Came to My Garage, which we'll be speaking about today, is promptly endorsed by James Redfield, best-selling author of the Celestine Prophecy series of books. And for more on Dr. Marni, you can check out Miss Liz's Facebook page, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and you will find all of that information. Now, let me get my guests into the studio here with me. Welcome, Dr. Marni. It is a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Miss Liz. Thanks for having me on Tea Time.
So, Dr. Marni, how did it all begin? Let's get back to the beginning of Dr. Marni, and then we're going to get into the books and all of that good stuff and all the good work that you do.
So the beginning, let's see. I was born in Miami, Florida, and shortly thereafter, our family moved to the northern suburbs, the North Shore suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, in the USA. And that is where I spent most of my life, was in the Chicago suburbs. And I went on to go to college in Illinois and teach in Illinois and raise a family in Illinois. And actually had an amazing garage sale that was life-changing after I chose to sort of leave my Illinois American dream. But it was a result of surviving some very challenging situations that I had to deal with. And so I did that, and went on to write an award-winning book. And after retiring from my career as a teacher, I moved 3 years ago to the Caribbean, where I live now. And when I moved, I was still doing a lot of healing and trying to make sense of what I had gone through. Um, and I ended up writing a 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love. And that brings awareness to domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation. And then with anything, you really need to do a deep dive into your own role and foundational patterns that you bring into relationships. So I also included intergenerational family trauma into the mix. So that is a little bit about me.
So I noticed that your books are in the back of you, Dr.
Yeah.
Marni, and I noticed that they're different colors. Is there a reason for the colors?
Well, I'm just someone who always enjoyed bright colors. Even growing up in the Midwest, in the middle of the United States, I was someone who was always drawn to ethnic colors and just bright colors. And I think being a special education teacher and trying to make learning fun for kids and for young adults, we're all multisensory learners. Some people are stronger at hearing, some people are stronger at seeing. And I wanted to be sensitive to that. So I think I always incorporated bright colors into whatever I did. And it sort of turned out that I didn't realize I was writing a 5-book series. I started out writing a 1 book. But then it led into a second book and a third book and a fourth book and a fifth book. And I'm actually writing the 6th and final book in the series. And so I was just drawn to these bright colors.
So in this series, what was the first book that you wrote?
The first book of True Deceit, False Love is a blue book, and it is actually 15,555 terms and phrases on these family issues: domestic violence, parental alienation, narcissistic abuse. And it came about because I was just trying to figure out what I was going through, and I didn't know any of these terms. And I would write down the terms to look up later so I could connect the dots to my own experience, just to research and learn about what I had gone through. I really believe knowledge is power. And I think when we do some of that inner work, it really helps us understand what we've been through. And so that book ended up leading to acrostic poetry, where I took a lot of these terms and actually created sentences and information and also just emotional response to some of these terms, which then led to a survivor's workbook. So actually the second book of acrostic poetry is bright green. And then the third book was a survivor's workbook. And that really, if people found that writing is healing for them, they could pick up this survivor workbook and kind of create their own acrostic poetry. And the fourth book is some free verse poetry in bright yellow. And then the final book is something very unique. It is a purple book. In honor of domestic violence, which that is the color, and that's the color I see you're wearing today as well. This is actually a word search puzzle book because, when we are healing, we need to find different modalities and use different parts of our brain to heal. And I found that word search puzzles really helped me. Any kind of puzzles actually were very helpful in distracting me from the trauma that I was actually enduring, kind of giving me a little bit of a mental break, but at the same time, using the terminology so that I was continuing to learn and understand what I went through.
Well, I kind of like that you say the word search, right? And the puzzles, because that's what domestic violence is. It's broken pieces and the puzzle of understanding and everything. I've never actually heard anybody talk about puzzles for survivors, and word searching, and because we have a hard time expressing our emotions and our feelings because we're so brought down, right? We're so kicked down to the dirt that we don't know how to express ourselves. So I think it's really important to, just be different. And I see that in the way that you've done the series is you've
Right.
given a different flavor and a different way of healing in different colors as well. And colors do actually speak loud to people, they're
Sure.
drawn to certain colors. And that, I know for me, I'm drawn to blue and orange. So when I see blue and orange, I'm like, oh, those two are for sure. Like, I'm like, and it has to do with our favorite colors as well that we're drawn to,
Right.
so maybe there's a reason for these colors as well for you, Dr. Marni, and because you're drawn to those colors at that time of your healing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I could make a correlation for each of the books in that series with their coordinating color. And I could make a case for why that particular book, I chose that color for. One of the things I've experienced in my domestic violence scenario is parental alienation. And that's such a devastating form of family violence that actually happens to many wonderful fathers and many wonderful mothers, where the children, whether they're young or adult, align with the abusing parent. And, all based on a false narrative of lies or half truths, rewritten memories, that type of thing. I wrote a lot about that in my uh, free verse poetry book, and yellow is that color. And yellow to me signifies sunshine and happiness. And even though I've experienced the loss of my living children, they were adults when I chose to divorce after 27 years. My children were 20 and 23 at the time. Now we're going on close to a decade without having them in my life, like I did before. I still am a happy individual. I still am filled with love and gratitude and certainly honesty. And I think that having these kind of challenging but very important conversations allow awareness to happen so that I think there are a lot of people that are familiar with parental alienation. They just don't know the term for it.
Yeah.
Um, they might have experienced it in their own family with the divorce or separation of their own parents. Or as a parent, they might have had a spouse that they have left or a partner they have left that is just all about destroying them. And they take everything from you. They make you bankrupt. They take your home, your money, your support system, even to a smear campaign. You find you don't have friends, family, and neighbors there to help process what you've been through. But many of these abusers, really use the children as weapons to destroy that parent as much as they can. And in my case, I don't think I can be destroyed. I believe in honesty and goodness. And, even though my children are not in my life, I think that after 20 years with one and 30 with the other, I provided a wonderful foundation for them. They know that their mother loves them to the moon and back. And, they have to be on their own journey. They have to get through their own, trauma. The researchers, and many of them who have endorsed my book series, Dr. Jennifer Harmon, Dr. Sam Vaknin, Tracy Malone, Lisa Romano, Ashley Burgess. I mean, I could go on. There's a list of people that are really influencers in bringing awareness to some of these family dynamics. They have turned around and endorsed my book and the book series. And I have found validation that I know that I have done the absolute best that I can. But understanding parental alienation is very important. And our children have to go through their own learning journey. Unfortunately, these researchers do believe that it is a very devastating form of child abuse, no matter what age the kids are. And it's also intimate partner violence, which is, just an offshoot of domestic violence that happens to both men and women. It's not a gender specific thing. It's just
Yeah.
very unfortunate. And part of the healing is to go back into your own family of origin, your own foundations, and what patterns you bring to relationships. And understand your role in things and make some changes. I've had to make some very big changes in my boundaries and who I let in my life and who I keep in my life, because I had such weak boundaries. I allowed, you know, negative scenarios to happen, and I would just keep thinking the best, that it will get better, when really, that's not always how things play out.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Marni, you mentioned the loss, living loss. Now, for the viewers and listeners out there that are tuning in and that will watch the replay, could you share a little bit on the loss of living children? Because a lot of people don't understand this. And like I said before the show started, we have a lot of similarities in our stories, but our stories are different. And when I explain to people that I grieve my living children, even though they're a part of my life now, they don't understand the grief. So for the listeners and viewers out there, could you share your story on what you experienced with the grief of living children?
Yeah, when you've had loving relationships with your children, and as a primary caregiver and as a parent, you invest in your children with your heart and soul. You want the best for them. And being a mother was just woven into the fabric of who I was and who I am as a person. And daily contact with your children, you know, um, natural interactions, challenging times where, you're trying to help them be independent and learn some life lessons. And also just fun times when you're out in nature and just exploring the world together. That is abruptly cut off when you are a targeted parent with parental alienation. So, even though it is an abrupt situation, you realize that you haven't seen your kids in a week, they're not responding to your texts or emails or anything like that. And then the week turns into months, and then the months turn into years. And in my case, the years are almost too many to count. It's just so devastating. Um, that is parental alienation. And even though it was abrupt and it's all intentional, it's very different than estrangement, where you might have a real reason to
Yeah.
separate from a family member. It's very different. This is very much orchestrated by um, a malevolent person who ends up getting other people to join in, to aid in the alienation. The reality, even though it feels extremely abrupt, the reality is that the abusers most likely have been working on this campaign of denigration, setting the stage for discounting you with false narratives. But that has been going on many times for years and years before you finally have a light bulb moment and realize that you're not in a healthy marriage or a healthy relationship. So it was really a learning curve to understand this. But I will say that the learning has helped me cope and accept that this is a loss that I am grieving. I'm not only grieving the loss of my children, I'm grieving the loss of my dreams. I wanted to stay married because I'm a product of divorce and some abusive, unhealthy kind of upbringing situations. Not all of it, of course, but some of it. And I didn't want that for my own children. I think that contributed for me staying in the marriage for 27 years, even though I had red flags, even before I got married, that I just didn't follow. I projected my goodness, my belief in honesty and fidelity and fiscal responsibility and just all things good in family. I projected onto the person I was with, and that wasn't his same values. That was
So,
that's a loss. You grieve that, but the grieving the loss of your living children is they're not in your life. It's like experiencing a death, but it's got a different twist to it.
it does.
There's no final You know,
There's no resting place.
wow, yeah. There's that, you know, they're out there and you know they're being abused because they're still aligned with the alienator. And you know, as a loving parent, a loving dad or a loving mom, it is just devastating to know that your children are still in the midst of abuse. You were able to escape. They can't escape.
Yeah.
They live in fear. They live in alignment. They are isolated. You know, in my case, my two children are even isolated from each other. So they can't even compare notes. They don't have a relationship with each other. And abusers do that. They
Yeah.
purposely set the stage to make it so that the children are only dependent on them and their side of the family, that anyone else is, it's like an all good, all bad situation, which is just based on lies. And you know, any loving parent, and myself included, believe that children should have a relationship with both parents. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. So
But that's the way it works, right? There, and it's like I said, there's no resting place. It's a continuous pain and suffering because you know that they're alive, they're not past. You know, when a child passes, you know that their pain has ended. You know, but when they're living, we grieve each and every day. For me, it was the homework time. It was the bedtime stories. It was the picnics and the good moments that I really grieved a lot. At certain times of the day, it would be like, well, we used to do this together and we used to do that together. And then it was like, okay, I have to learn to reprogram myself. Now that my children are all adults, we're all connected, but we've always been connected. That was one thing I wanted, that connection, but there was still that disconnect. You know, our stories are similar, and that's why I really wanted to hear your story, and I wanted to have you as a guest because I believe hearing other women's stories or men's stories actually helps other survivors, because then we don't feel so alone, right? We don't feel
right.
so, oh my God, was I crazy? Did I overreact? Did I do, like, did I
But you know,
overthink this too much?
we naturally question ourselves because most people that are targeted, they've been in this situation, they've been gaslit for
Yeah.
years. They might be accomplished, intelligent, successful people, but little by little, just like that 1944 movie called Gaslighting, you know, where the abuser turns down the gas lights and makes the targeted person feel like they're kind of going crazy, like, you know, that they didn't see what they really saw. You know, they didn't hear what they really heard. They didn't feel, you know, that you're feeling it wrong. You're mistaken. And
Yeah.
so you start doubting your reality and your abilities and your worth. And some abusers are so skilled that they can get their targets, their spouses, to quit jobs, to isolate themselves from family and friends, you know, to have no money so that they are completely 100%, you know, dependent on the abuser. And that's how they like it. And they don't want their mask coming off to you. And but eventually truth prevails. I think eventually the mask does slip, and these malevolent people actually expose themselves. They expose themselves. It's like no one has to do it for them. But the damage they leave in their wake is just unbelievable, and it's ongoing. They're very obsessive. They continue to track, troll, stalk, harass, whatever. They want to keep that narrative, that false public persona, going as long as they can. They don't want others to really know the true character of their character.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot of traits that a narcissistic abuser has. You know, they want everyone to think that they're Prince Charming, when behind that closed door, it's Dr. Jekyll and Hyde that you're getting. You know, you don't know what you're getting. You know, and it could be the slightest movement that will set that person off. But then in the public eye, they are all calming and charming and really, oh, they're almost kind of playing with the mind. It's like you said, right? The mind game, right?
And they
Uh,
play a victim. You know, they're the ones that project. You know, they're the ones that lie, cheat, and steal, but will accuse you of lying, cheating, and stealing when you're wouldn't do anything like that. So they are calm, cool, and collected, not only out in the public eye or in the neighborhood or at their jobs, but also in the courtrooms.
Yep.
So it's the loving parent, the dad or the mother that has lost their kids and are just like, they just want some sort of equal justice. They just can't believe that a judge or a lawyer would go along with outright lies, even when you have proof and documentation. They don't care about that. Either by ignorance, they're just not well versed in this kind of personality disorder, and they're undiagnosed, and we're not here to diagnose them. I mean, these people, like you said, have narcissistic personality traits, but most of these people never get diagnosed because they're pointing the finger at other people. They don't do what the targeted person does with that inner reflection and trying to understand the dynamics and understand their role in how everything played out. That's one way you can kind of tell the difference between an abusing, alienating parent and a targeted parent, is kind of, the aftermath that a loving, honest parent goes through. It's a long time to heal in the journey. And I found writing to be very healing, but I also think our voices matter. And, we're speaking the truth, and, not to cause any harm to anyone else. It's just to help other people so that they can maybe, not suffer as much as we have, because they can learn about red flags and how to pay attention to them. They might be able to escape before they are murdered. And some of these people end up murdered, or have an unfortunate suicide or something, even though they never were mentally ill before, ever, never were diagnosed with anything. But, the abuser has this narrative, but they want them destroyed, and many of them want them dead. And they'll actually even, unfortunately kill children just to keep up a false narrative. We read about it in the news all the time, too much. And so we need to bring awareness to this. And you're doing that with your podcast, bringing awareness to so many different things, and what you stand for with your tea is pretty amazing.
Well, I like that you brought in the tea, because we're going to jump into Dr. Marni's tea and find out what her tea is. So for all the listeners and viewers, if you're tuning in, please let me know where you're tuning in from, because I always love to hear where you're tuning in from. And if you have any comments or questions, or even just a little support, just a little heart, throw it into the comments and I'll pop it up onto the screen here. And if you're checking out the replay and you want to find out any information, all of my guests will be in the description of the videos and the audio devices, so you can find all their information there as well. So Dr. Marni, what is your tea?
All right. Well, and I'm a fan of acrostics, because the second book in my 5-book series, True Deceit, False Love, is all about acrostic poetry, using letters to stand for things. And as a teacher, I would always use acrostics or letters to stand for things to help kids remember certain things they needed to learn. But so my tea, let's see, I would say my tea, so it's TEA. My tea is trauma survivor, because I am a trauma survivor and a domestic abuse survivor and a survivor of intergenerational patterns, as well as the unfortunate dynamic we talked about of parental alienation. So my T is trauma survivor. E would stand for educator. I was a teacher for 35 years in the Chicago suburbs. I loved my role as teacher. Actually, 12 of those years, I was a graduate school adjunct professor at Northern Illinois University. So I loved my role as an educator. And I wasn't really so much about teaching content and information as I was about connecting with the person, the child, the adult that I was teaching, and helping them realize their strengths and their worth and their abilities, and try to encourage them to be lifelong learners. And then A, I would have to say author, because I'm an author now of many books, and many that have won awards and are part of book clubs. And even my book, God Came to My Garage Sale, we're in talks of it being a movie, which would be just amazing. So, so T, trauma survivor, E, educator, and A, author. That is my T.
And I love it because it describes who you are. And this is what T is, right? We're teaching educational awareness. That's what my T is. Your T is trauma, educator, and author. And that's exactly who you are as an individual. It describes who you are as a person. And I can't serve any of my guests tea. That's why they come to me. They sit at my table and they serve their tea. And that's what Miss Liz does is I get the TEA out of them. And then they realize, oh, this is who I am. Wow, this is what I'm doing. And it's also a time travel of the past, the present, and the future, because your past was trauma. And now the future, the present is educating. You're educating through your books and that. And author in the future, that means more books are coming. So get ready, guys, because she's not done writing.
Yeah, no, I've got a 6th book in the series that, I've been working on. And then I'm also contributing as an author to many magazines and other kinds of literary endeavors. I think in 2023, I'm going to put my focus more on that in my written word than the spoken word.
And writing is healing. The voice is healing, but writing is healing as well, because it's releasing onto the paper. It's coming from us, and the words are being written by us, right? Yeah. It's like our voices. It's being told by us. Now let's get into the book that I see there. God Came to My Garage Sale. What is that all about? And where did you get that title from?
I'll tell you, that was the first book I wrote, and it was when I had lost everything, my home, my assets, my money. And I had to have a garage sale, and I had to part with material possessions, with family heirlooms. In many ways, I was parting with my hopes and dreams, for my family, for the future. But instead of having like feelings that were negative, of sadness and anger or revenge, negative feelings and actions that really aren't part of who I am as a person, I was filled with love. I was filled with compassion and gratitude. I looked back at my home and I just was like, even though I had lived in a false reality with a lot of deceit, believe me, a lot of deceit that eventually came to light, I had so many wonderful memories there, of our family and of my children. And some miracles came my way. Really spiritual miracles that were life-changing. I later, with my research, because I'm always someone that wants to look into things, I realized what I had were spiritually transformative encounters, very much like a near-death experience, sort of out of body, slow motion, being shown something otherworldly, but the feeling was of love and compassion, and that I would be okay. Even though I was making the choice to leave this marriage, I was making the choice to stay true to my values. And in order to do that, I needed to escape what I was in. And so I had so many of these miracles that happened. And again, with my research throughout the garage sale, I kept on saying, did God come to my garage sale? Is there something more going on here? And that was saying a lot for someone who actually grew up atheist with no foundation in religion or spirituality. I mean, I found that little by little as I was an adult. But boy, when I had this trauma in my life, and I think a lot of awakenings happen as a result of deep, dark trauma, I was shown love and light and goodness. And so much so that I wanted to write a book about paying attention to signs and synchronicities all around us. Because even in an everyday mundane situation, God can come to your garage sale. So it's not a religious book. It's more of a spiritual book about an atheist woman who loses everything. Kind of sounds familiar. And actually all of my things I write about in this fiction were grounded in reality, in true experiences, where as a questioning person, I thought something has to be going on here, because somehow I am surviving trauma big time. And it actually was preparing me to survive even more trauma after the many years of repercussions as a result of my decision. Because, abusers are like predators. They don't let their prey go easily,
Oh,
so, so even though you've moved on and I've moved on, I live in the Caribbean, I found love again. I'm happy. I'm enjoying passions that I like to do with writing and travel and spending time in nature. You know, Less evolved individuals are stuck and they want to keep engaging in chaos and negativity. They want to keep their narrative going at all
yeah,
costs. And you can only pity them and pray for them and just hope that in general the world's light bulb will go on for anyone that has any kind of intention to harm other people, and they might want to change and say that's not how the world should be. We should be
yeah.
about love and compassion.
But I think as a survivor, we always pray that our abusers will change one day, even after we're out of the situation, you know, and the relationships. We still want them to change. We still have hope, you know. I know for my abusers, I still pray each and every day that they find peace in their heart and seek help, you know, because they are sick and they need help. But because of who they are and the traits and patterns and cycles that they have living within them, they probably will never get help.
Yeah.
But as survivors, we still want them to get help. We still hope that they get help, you know?
And then when you have children with these abusers, you want so much for your children to have a happy life,
Yeah.
to release. They shouldn't have to go through this alignment and they've been taught to hate half of who they are,
Yeah.
half of their DNA. And the truth eventually comes out, but so much damage is done and we want so if there's any little bit of inkling, of wanting your abuser to change, not only just in general that there should be goodness and light in the world, but you want your children to just be able to have a happy life and not be fed a false narrative and live in a lie.
Well, and you said it, you know, you say that they hate half of themselves. As a mom, that's hard for us to, you
Right.
know, we created these children and half of them hate themselves, you know, because of the situation that we were in and that we had put them in. And I was like you, Dr. Marion. I didn't want that divorce. I wanted that perfect marriage. I wanted to stand by my man. I wanted to, you know, and it was either life or death. You either
Mhm.
get out or you're going out, you
Yeah.
know?
Or you'll be taken out,
Yeah.
and these abusers will, they're very dangerous people because the way they think is just so twisted and it's filled with such evil and malevolence, and it's not who we are, and it's very hard to really fully understand the extent of what they are capable of.
Yeah. So you gave me a one word when I asked you what your one word was. Do you remember what you gave me?
Well, the one word that means the most to me is love. Was that the word I said?
No, you gave me survive thriver. You put survive and thriver
Oh, Sir
together.
Thriver, Sir Thriver. Well, I will tell you, they both are very similar because if a Sir Thriver is someone that not only survives what you go through, you are thriving afterwards. And I feel that, even though I'm still on this healing journey and most likely will be the rest of my life, um, I have gotten to the point where I am thriving and life is
Yeah.
good. Even despite my losses, I'm thriving. But when I didn't know that I put that down because we were in contact many months ago, because really one word that resonates with me is love. I just believe the highest vibration in the world is love. And, if we could all get to a place of loving others and loving ourselves, we'll see that people have more in common with each other than they do have differences. But yes, I'm a surthriver. And actually, that term surthriver was coined by Tracy A. Malone, someone that I really looked up to because she's a wonderful individual who has survived and gone on to thrive after experiencing tremendous narcissistic abuse. And she has a wonderful website, Narcissist Abuse Support. And she's actually written a wonderful book. I wish I had this book, called Divorcing Your Narcissist.
Oh,
You can't make this stuff up. Um, I wish I had this resource, when I was going through my decision to leave my abuser, because I think I would have had a more comfortable exit. I may not have lost so many things that I lost. Um, and I might have had maybe one lawyer instead of 15 lawyers after how many years. I'm still in the court system with the abuser, unfortunately. He just can't let me go. But that's how he wants to spend his time. That's not, I
yeah.
try not to focus on that, because, he's not well. Like you said, they are not well. But anyway, Sir Thriver is a term that she coined. And I was so thrilled just in kind of reaching out to her, because one person can make a difference in this world. Just one person can. She made a very big difference in my life. And then she turned around and endorsed my books. And we've become very much good friends, soul sisters. She's actually even come out to the Caribbean to visit, because we have connected on a level that is very, very deep, much stronger than some of the connections I've had where I've known people for a lifetime and for years, and then realized there was a lot of betrayal and deceit with some of those dynamics and relationships.
So how did you feel when you found out about the betrayal and deceit?
Just heartbroken. Well, I suppose I was in denial about it. Like grief has all those stages. Denial is one of them. You don't want to believe that someone you have committed your life to and raised children with and, been married to for close to 3 decades. You don't want to believe that they've betrayed you, and that they've been deceitful, and that so much of your life is a lie. In fact, I even found with a best friend, that I knew even longer than than my ex-husband. Um, I was in a trauma bond with this friendship, because um, I really thought that it was true and honest, and I found out they were dishonest. And honesty is a value that I hold so dear. And it's not that I won't give people second chances and third chances and fourth chances, but boy, this dishonesty and this betrayal was so significant that I knew it was sad. It's like a loss of what you thought was a reality. And life will never be the same. I actually wrote a poem about this best girlfriend, called Vanished Voice. Actually, a lot of my feelings and emotions with losing this best friend, um, they were interwoven into all sorts of my writing. But Vanished Voice, meaning that I had no idea that at one point that would be the last time I would hear or see or connect with this person. It kind of took me by surprise. So I think there's all the stages of grief with any of these, just the shock, the denial, the bargaining. Eventually you do get to acceptance, though.
Yep.
Eventually the acceptance comes, and you're a better person for it.
Well, it's like you said, right? It's the stages of grief.
Yeah.
Getting out of any abusive situation is grief, because you went into that relationship with a whole different feeling and wanting different results, and then you get these results and you're like, well, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So you said for 27 years. So what was the breaking point that actually got you out of this situation?
I'll tell you, it's in the scheme of things, after everything I've been through, it's a pretty minor situation, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what it takes. It takes situation after situation after situation that you endure, you ignore, you justify, you look the other way, you get yourself busy, whatever it is. I was just out for dinner with him and one of our adult children, and unintentionally he confessed and it all involved money manipulation. He was someone that's obsessed with money and juggling money and moving money from one account to another. And of course, later on, I find out there's just so much deceit with money, with our family's money and our investments or whatever. And money to him is power and control. That's why I'm still back in the court system with him. And it's all about money. He doesn't need the money. He makes double, triple, quadruple what I make.
But it's that he wants that hold.
Wants that hold. It's not about money, but it appears like it's about money to the court system. But it was just over pizza with these unintentional confessions. But boy, I was finally at a point where I paid attention. Actually, it involved stealing some of our children's money without asking, without just sort of announcing that thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars was something that he needed. And then I'm thinking, okay, of possible addictions that,
But you always go to the worst extreme, right?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know. Some people that are in these situations find that their significant other actually had a family with another, partner, has kids with other people, across the globe, across the nation, whatever. I mean, it's unbelievable, some of these scenarios. Even when you think it's too bad to even be real, it's real for someone. Believe me, it's real for someone. But it was then that I couldn't unhear what I heard. I couldn't put the connect the dots, unconnect them after I connected the dots. And then it was shortly later, a day or so after, that I was physically assaulted, slammed up against the wall, finger in the face. Don't you dare divorce me. And if you divorce me, I'll take your home, your money, your children. And he did just that. But that even was bizarre to me. Why would someone say, don't you dare divorce me? I never talked about divorce. It's like he knew that I knew, and the game was up.
Yep.
And it was like a point of no return. And with forensic accountants and with some other kind of investigative work, then you really see the real picture that you've just been duped for a long time. And that's not a great feeling. It's not a great feeling. But, when you do the healing journey and you realize how you were, predisposed to ignore things, then you can kind of make sense of it all and get to the point where you can not only survive, but you can thrive. You can move past this, learn your lessons, realize that, you have to put up some healthier boundaries because you don't want to get yourself in this situation again. I'm much more of a private person now, much more discerning about who I let in my life on a deeper level or who I keep in my life. And that I wasn't ever like that before, but I am now after what I.
So it's more of the guarding, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I call it the guard gate. Like you ain't getting past the guard gate. Like, I don't care how pretty you are, how sweet talker you are. My guards are up. And in order for you to get through that guard gate, you really have to work hard to get through it.
Right. And I'll tell you, your circle goes from being big with your relationships, many of which are surface, to very, very small, but the circle is more authentic. I was thrilled. I'm very fortunate in my life that a very good friend that I met, we spent a lot of time together, traveled a lot together, really connected. He is now my life partner here in the Caribbean. And we, our relationship is based on so many things that are so very different than what my marriage was based on. And honesty is one of the biggest parts. But, definitely, he's very, very supportive. He doesn't have children of his own, but his heart goes out to me knowing he had met both of my children, at one point. And so, he understands. It's nice to spend my days with someone that gets it, but someone that I also really enjoy being with, and that has the same value of honesty.
Well, that's it, right? We look for that honest because we've been lied to and betrayed and deceit for so long, right? So what did your writing your story and sharing your story teach you about yourself?
It taught me that I would be okay, that I had that some of the qualities that I kind of forgot that I had, that through the gaslighting or through getting busy or, whatever it was, I could revisit that, and that I am worthy. I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of being here on this world. And I think that it has taught me that our voices matter, and that sharing our stories, either in podcasts like this or helping a stranger, um, or whether it's putting ideas and concepts in the written word, in books, and in some tools and resources that could maybe help other people, is really so very important. It seems like so many people that have handled adversity, and that could look very different for different people. It might not have anything to do with family trauma,
Yeah.
but they still have gone through adversity. When people get to the point of where they want to share their experiences or wisdom and reach out to inspire others that they can get through it, I think that's a big turning point in a person's life.
So what message would you have for a woman who's going through abuse right now?
I would say, first of all, get yourself to a place of safety, because, anything can happen and does happen. But I would say pay attention to some red flags. Learn about what are red flags with isolation and gaslighting, and when your partner is saying, oh, I've got another late night at work, or I have to go away for a weekend, when their job doesn't entail that. If they're very secretive, if you find you're dealing with a secret agent man, and it can be for women as well, but someone who is very secretive, with regards to texting or receipts. You always hear about receipts from their wallet, of that's could be an eye opener for someone. Like, what do you mean you were at this hotel? And or that you bought flowers. I don't remember getting flowers. And when you do a little bit of detective work, but pay attention to the red flags, and I think that is like the first advice. Get yourself safe. Pay attention to the red flags. If you could, if not all situations end in divorce. People can come to terms and understanding and work through things if both parties are wanting to do that.
Yeah.
But so many cases, it's a one-sided situation. But get a resource, look into Tracy Malone's book, Divorcing Your Narcissist, learn about some of the things that other people have gone through. And then, of course, a big component is you have to really look at yourself and what kind of foundational patterns you bring to that marriage, that partnership, or any of your relationships. You do need to do the inner work to understand why you're trauma bonded, why you have weak boundaries.
I really like that you brought up the trauma bond, because there is so much trauma bond that, we do put into friends and family members and stuff, that we reach out to them, but they're actually the ones that are actually causing the trauma
Yes.
to us in the back.
Very
And that is awesome. That is awful to feel, because then you don't know who to trust, especially
Right.
when it's family members who are turning on you, and you're like, look, you're my family. Why are you turning on me? So
Right.
there's a lot of trauma bonds, and it's really important to break those bonds.
Yeah.
Like you said, like you had friends for longer than your marriage, where you realize, oh my goodness, this person, like, what else is there,
Right.
So you gotta cut those cords.
A lot of betrayal, a lot of deceit, a lot of lies. Who knew that my best friend could contribute to alienating my children.
Yeah.
And she did, and it's just mind blowing because we don't operate that way. So it's hard for us to even put ourselves in their shoes to understand why they would do what they are doing. But it's all part of opening our eyes, the great awakening.
Yeah. So if anybody would like to get a copy of your book, where could they get it?
All my books are on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. My publisher is Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. My books are in numerous bookstores, not only in the United States, but in Canada and internationally. I've done a lot of book signings. Even your local bookseller, instead of going to one of those big box stores, you could go to just a local bookseller and have them order the book. All my God Came to My Garage Sale is in US dollars, $11.99, or all my books are e-version for $3.99. So they're very affordable. But that is where you can find my book. And actually, it turns out that my book, God Came to My Garage Sale, is one of these book club favorites. So I'm being notified of numerous book clubs that are picking up 5 copies or 10 copies. And there's a book club where they are, reading it and discussing it. And I think part of it is because the format is pretty easy to read, with 13 vignettes. It's not a huge, endeavor to read, but I think the message is pretty cool, and it's resonating with people to find hope in tough situations, that we can handle challenges with love. And if we are open to signs and synchronicities, they can come our way and change the course of our path to bring us to happiness and self-actualization.
Well, Dr. Marni, I really want to thank you for joining me today on Tea Time. And, your book, actually, just looking at the cover, it's right beside you. It's an awakening book. The sky is opening up. And I love that we look at God in a spiritual way.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we always have to put it as a religious way? I love that you're putting it as a spiritual way, because it is a spiritual journey getting out of any form of abuse relationships. The journey is within ourselves, that we have to take those steps to get out of those steps, because we get into the patterns and cycles as well, like you said, and then we're like, oh, well, we have to look at ourselves now. Do we want to continue this pattern for the next 20, 30, 40 years, where we finally have that straw that breaks the back and says, no, we don't. And that's kind of the awakening of God saying, you got better things to do.
Yeah.
Let me take you on a different journey. Let me take you to a different garage sale,
Yeah.
But it was a true honor to have you as a guest today, and sharing your story and sharing the colors of the books. And I really want to thank you for creating this series in a different way, and an educational way, and a healing, self-healing journey, because sometimes we pick up a book and well, it's her story, it's his story. How's that going to help me? Where you've created a story where this is your story.
Right.
Put yourself.
It really is. Other people, it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, a grandparent, an abuser, a survivor, a child. I kind of get the message across through all different perspectives, So thank you for your kind words, Miss Liz, and for your support and for your interest in having me on Tea Time. I really appreciate being here.
Well, it was an honor having you. And like you said, we spoke a couple months ago. So, and I really want to have stories on that I can resonate with as well, who helped me as well, because having you today has helped me understand some of my journey and some of my healing as well. Having other stories shared actually helps other survivors. And you've helped me today. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for coming on Tea Time and sharing your story, because I know it's not an easy one. And I want to thank all the viewers and listeners out there who do tune into Tea Time with Miss Liz. This is a different platform. There are hard topics. There are different countries coming in with different rules, regulations, rights, and all that. So let's just remember that We all just need to be kind to one another and have a door and a table and a cup of tea for everyone. And I want to thank you again, Dr. Marni, for sharing your tea, because it is a strong tea. So keep serving your tea and keep being who you are. And let's stay connected and let's see what doors we can open with your tea and flow it for others. So I want to thank everyone again, and I will see everyone for the last tea time of September with Philip Farkowski. He is going to be here with horror stories. That's right. So if you haven't heard of Philip Farkowski, you want to check him out. Really incredible man. So he will be closing up September. And tonight at 7 p.m., I will be releasing the October guests. So be sure to check that out, because we do have some new countries that will be joining Tea Time with Miss Liz. Miss Liz is going on the map, and we're going to bring a new country, a new flow, and we're going to spill some tea and make a difference with one cup at a time.